That bird! Oh, you gotta go. Oh, you're a beautiful cardinal. Oh, you're a beautiful female cardinal, but you gotta go. You're wrecking my video. Hey everyone, it's Jo, and I'm the Kosher Ninja. We've been chatting about my adventure last year hiking on the Shvil Israel, or Israel National Trail. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you've stopped by, and while you're here, don't forget to check out my videos from the Shvil and to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Right now, we're going to talk some more about if and how to train for the Shvil. We've been talking a lot about planning for the Shvil, and equally important is the question of training. And yes, it is a strange, even stranger time to be talking about training for the Shvil than planning, because the world is really only just beginning to open up again. But fortunately for the Shvil, the spring hiking season is over now, pretty much, and it's really too hot to be out on the Shvil. And this fall hiking season doesn't start until September. So there's still hope for you if you're planning to hit the Shvil this year. But in that case, right about now, you should start thinking and preparing your training plan. Just like we did for planning, before we even talk about how to train for the Shvil, we need to ask the more fundamental question: should you train at all? And just like planning, this is a tough question, and there really is no right or wrong answer. You're going to have to make that decision for yourself, but before you do, let's talk about some of the pros and cons. The Red Book is firmly on the side of training, and I'm going to read an excerpt from the preface. Being fit for the hike and the weight of your pack are most important in order to prevent unnecessary injuries and enjoy the hike from day one. The INT is not an easy trail. The first few days from the north, and more so from Eilat, are difficult. The first day from Dan is easy, but after that comes a long ascent of 22 kilometers. From Eilat, we strongly recommend to be prepared for a strenuous start of 4 days. It is almost like alpine hiking. To climb on the first day a total of 1,000 meters over a distance of 14 kilometers with a heavy backpack, not to mention the desert climate, is difficult. Consider alpine training at home. Eilat Mountains are very beautiful. You want to enjoy the hike from its first hour. You don't want to be exhausted after 3 hours or experience blisters at the top of Mount Tzfahot. Please don't underestimate the physical training before the hike. So that's the Red Book. The Shvil, just like any other major backpacking trail, is a challenging physical endeavor. It's not a walk in the park. But just like you don't have to be an elite athlete to run the Boston Marathon, you don't have to be an elite athlete to do the Shvil, or any of the US trifecta for that matter. But ask anyone who's run the Boston Marathon if they would do it without training, and I can pretty much guarantee you their answer. In fact, I'm taking bets. Anybody? So don't underestimate the Shvil. There are some things that you can do to start out more gently, and we've talked about some of those. And while the Red Book is less concerned about hardcore alpine training if you're starting from the north, it certainly doesn't downplay the need for physical conditioning. When I first read the Red Book, I swear that it said in there that if you're starting from the north and you're reasonably fit, it's not necessary to train. I can't find that anywhere now, but I swear it was there. Having said that, even then, the Red Book did not recommend not training. So what about not training? Dixie from Homemade Wanderlust has said that she basically gets off the couch and hits the trail. So why can't you? Well, sure you can, it's up to you. But here's the thing. The US trifecta, each of those 3 trails, give you 6 months to catch up and make up for lost time ramping up in the beginning. The Shvil, not counting for the flexibility that we've talked about, is only 2 months long. So Dixie can afford to take it slow in the beginning because she knows that once she has her trail legs, she'll still have over 5 months to catch up, and she'll be doing 30 or 40 mile days at times. On the Shvil, on the other hand, after the first 3 weeks, whether you started in the north or the south, you'll have just either completed or be nearing completion of the most difficult part of the trail, and you'll only have about a month and a half left. If you did your training, those most difficult 3 weeks would have been enjoyable, and right now you'd be looking forward to the populated coastal and central parts of Israel. If you didn't do your training, those first 3 months you would have probably been struggling with terrain, the climate, and possible injuries. And right now you'd be behind schedule, stressed, and not able to enjoy the easier central section, knowing that you still have the other difficult section ahead of you. So whatever you do, don't equate or confuse the Shvil with the US trails or other international trails. The Shvil is a unique, intense experience, and it's very important to be prepared, especially physically, right from the get-go. So how do you train? Well, by now you're not going to be surprised when I tell you that this is going to be different for everyone. We've already talked about how we have experienced backpackers and rookies, but beyond this, we've got young Israelis straight out of the military in the best shape of their lives, and also civilians from Israel and abroad of varying different ages and backpacking experience and fitness levels. So to vastly generalize, Israelis will probably be rookies in the best shape of their lives. Foreigners will probably be experienced backpackers, probably a little bit older, and with little to no experience in the Israeli climate. Men and women might have some different considerations, and if that's not enough, it depends on if you're starting from the north or the south. And you want me to tell you how to train? Luckily, there are lots of books and YouTube videos that talk about training for backpacking and trekking. So I would encourage you to do your own research online or at your local outfitters or even your local library. If you do check out your local library though, just make sure that your resources are reasonably up to date, because there's been a lot of technological advances over the last several years that will have affected the gear you should carry and therefore how you should train. The obvious starting point for your research though should be the preface to the Red Book. It has an example training plan in there for both northbound and southbound hikers. So check that out first and then go check out those other resources. Now I'll talk a little bit about what the different groups of hikers should consider in making their training plans. Israelis coming out of the military and foreigners who are experienced backpackers, your fitness levels will probably be high to begin with. So you should focus more on training with a backpack in technical terrain and on preparing for the climate. Older Israelis have an advantage over foreigners, rookies and pros alike, in that whether you're a newbie or experienced, you're used to the climate. But don't be fooled, you still need to train. Luckily for you though, you'll actually be training in the same or close to the same climatic conditions that you'll actually meet on the Shvil. Us foreigners, on the other hand, We're handicapped by the climate, and I've mentioned it so many times already that we're actually going to do a separate video on that. Regarding differences in training between men and women, I really don't think that's such a big deal. I think men and women, for the most part, will have similar needs. Having said that, a German woman quoted in the Red Book has suggested that some women might need to do additional upper body training. That may be true, but I think that's actually a really good point for everybody. And by the way, if you're a woman considering doing the Shvil, especially solo, or if you love someone who is, I would highly recommend reading Jill Jauman's contribution in the new edition of the Red Book for an excellent perspective. Hopefully by now you can appreciate the need for training for the Shvil. If you're straight off another trail, then sure, you could consider that your training. But because of the timing of the Israeli hiking seasons, it's really pretty unlikely that you are going to be straight off another trail. So it's very important to be intentional about your training before you hit the Shvil. So the physical conditioning side is obvious, but there are some other things you should think about training for the Shvil. The Red Book recommends a basic course in first aid or even CPR. Personally, I think that that's not necessary for the Shvil, but hey, if it's something you're interested in and you want to do it anyways, go ahead. You may have to look around a little bit though to find a course that deals with wilderness or desert situations, so keep that in mind. Next, and experienced backpackers will already know this, you need to train to use your gear, especially if you're a rookie or if you have new gear that you've never used before. If you're a newbie, you need to learn how to read a map. You know how to read a map, you're telling me. I know you know how to read a map. I'm talking about topographical maps. And even if you're planning to mainly rely on an app, and by the way, learn how to use your app before you go, it's still really important and good to know how to read those topographical maps, the ones that you'll find in the Red Book, because sometimes maybe your app won't be working, or for whatever reason, it's just really important to have them with you and to know how to read them. And there's also a lot of information in those maps that you might not necessarily find elsewhere. So things like sites and dry waterfalls and lookout points and water pits that you might want to take a dip in, and just other things that you might want to see. So this has been some general considerations about what you should keep in mind while you're thinking about training for the Shvil. Next time, we'll talk about some more specifics and about what I did to train, or didn't do. So are you planning for the Shvil Israel or for another trail? Did this video help convince you about the need to train? Do you still have any questions? Tell me about all that in the comments down below. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell and share with your friends. If you've hiked the Shvil Israel or anywhere else in Israel and you have some helpful suggestions to add, please include those down in the comments down below as well, and I would just love to hear from you. I'm so excited that we get to share our journeys and experiences in this way, and I can't wait to see you again next time. Until then, thanks for watching and shalom, eh?